Um,
All right. Thank you, everyone. And Tanuja, take it away.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Greg. And thank you all for being here, spending your, what day, I don't even know what day it is, your Wednesday night with us. I'm just happy to be doing this webinar. I've been doing a lot of webinars, since we've been in quarantine, and just enjoying this, and just love interacting with our alums as well. So we are going to be using the chat box. I've muted actually everyone, and we're not going to be using video as well tonight. So say hello in the chat box. Let us know where you're coming from. And I'll say hello so you can see the chat box blinking. Let us know where you're from, where you calling in from, because this is going to be an interactive session. So if you guys don't say anything. And I'm seeing some familiar names pop up, so that's good. Atlanta, welcome, Mike. David from Montclair, welcome, David. Sydney from Brooklyn, awesome. Hi, Jackie, good to see you again. Staying in South Carolina, wow. Janelle is from Queens. Edwin worked for the City Housing Agency for over 30 years, wow. Gideon, Manhattan. Sylvia from Staten Island. Florence from Orange County. Shauna, New York City. Great to have all of you here. So tonight we'll be talking about creating an environment to be productive. Yeah, so we're representing all the boroughs. Greg is saying. Olivia is living in Queens. Queens. Amanda, good to see you, Amanda. Hi, Orlis. Good to see you as well. Yeah, Amanda, I'm looking forward to the webinar and interactions as well. So today's topic is creating an environment to be productive. And this is in terms of productivity and time management and all of that, it's a highly demanded topic. In fact, Sunday night I did one with our students on time management. And this presentation actually, it falls right into, or it complements that very well, because we're going to talk specifically about how to set your environment up to be productive. So let's start with a question. What's your biggest challenge when it comes to productivity? What is your biggest challenge when it comes to productivity? So type in the box and let us know. So Edwin is saying staying focused. David is saying motivation. Mike is saying distractions. Yeah, totally get that, Mike. Jackie, the feeling that nothing is coming out of it. So you're doing and doing and not feeling that there's any real output. Steve is saying too many distractions. Florence staying focused. Yeah. And we're seeing like some themes here, right? In terms of what the challenges are. Olivia saying staying focused. And what is it that's hard about staying focused? What is the challenge there? Sean is saying seeing it all the way through. So yeah, sometimes we start things, but we never see it to completion. Janelle is saying getting organized and prioritizing. And what's difficult about that, Janelle? Gideon is saying goals and following through. So setting up goals and following through with the goals. David is saying starting. So some people are having trouble finishing, and how do you start? Edwin is saying too many moving parts, and how do you deal with those moving parts, which can be overwhelming. Olivia saying I start thinking other things. So, getting distracted by your thoughts, Olivia. That's not keeping you focused. Florence having a space for working. Yeah, we're going to talk about that as well today, Florence. So we see a lot of different challenges come up, and what we can also see from your responses that there's a lot of commonality in terms of what those challenges are. So what does it feel like to be productive? What's that feeling of of productivity like for you? So Florence is saying completion of a task. So I'm guessing that means a sense of accomplishment. It's like closing a sale. Yeah. So it's like you close the sale and you actually feel, like you've accomplished something. Jackie is saying like a weight has been lifted from my chest. So relief. Wow. Edwin is saying seeing a task completed. Rachel is saying a sense of accomplishment. Yeah. So what does it feel like to be productive? How do you know that you've been productive? Olivia saying getting my assignments done. So yeah, that feeling of accomplishment. Crossing things off my list. So yeah, so even having a list and physically crossing things off can feel productive. So it might be important as well to have a list that you're working off of. So David is saying calmness. That's so great, David, in terms of that feeling of that feeling of just being calm, that you've actually, that you're maybe feeling that sense of peace as well. So specifically environment, right? In terms of productivity, why environment is important. So what I like to, when I'm talking to students about, or anyone about goals, I say, imagine you're planting a seed, right? What does that seed need in order for it to achieve its potential if you're going to be planting it? What are the conditions that are required in order for that seed to achieve its potential, for it to, become a plant? So Sean is saying patience, definitely patience. So time. Gideon is saying water, sunlight, the good soil, right? The right soil. Creativity, stillness, knowledge. For the seed, David. Florence is saying, yeah, so in terms of, just let's talk about a seed first, in terms of like that seed. So I'm planting an acorn in the ground, and that acorn is going to become an oak tree. What are the things that seed would need in order for it to reach its potential of an oak tree? Right, so it would need, and you guys said it, water, sunlight, the proper soil, right? And those things are really important in terms of creating the right conditions and knowing what those right conditions are for that seed to really take root and to grow, right? And the other thing that you need to do is that you need to ensure like the weeds are not taking over. You need to ensure that, like you're taking out of, like if you have a garden, that you have to make sure that you're cleaning that garden and you're, like all of the weeds are removed. That's going to be really important. So basically, in terms of the environment, you have to create conditions that make it easy to thrive. And that's what we're going to be talking about today when it comes to your goals. How do you create conditions that make it easy for you to win, right? So this is a quote. If you've attended one of my webinars, you've probably seen it as well. This person says, when a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. Meaning that, if you have goals and you're not thriving, that you might want to start looking at your environment in terms of seeing what is it that needs to change in that environment for you to actually feel like you're productive, for you to feel like you're thriving. And that's why we're focusing on environment tonight, because this is something that you have 100% control over in terms of how is it that you are actually managing, and how are you setting up your environment for you to win, right? So personal resolve is not enough. So for most people, when they're doing goal setting, what they're focusing on is like the willpower, right? Where you're using effort to basically push and to force and to make things happen. So it's like, if you say you have a goal of losing 10 pounds, right? and you're just basically forcing yourself to go to the gym every day, and you're waking up and maybe you don't want to go, but you're like thinking about that it has to be about self-discipline and all of that. But if really you're creating your environment where it makes it easy to go to the gym, where for example maybe the night before you're just putting out your clothes, you're reminding yourself of that vision of what it is to be healthy and all of that, and you're in this 100%, it's actually going to make it easier for you to achieve the goal, as opposed to if you have an environment which might be have a lot of distractions, that makes it harder for you to achieve the goal. And basically, if your environment is not supporting you, you are going to have to expend a lot of effort, because it's coming from this place of resistance. There's one thing pulling you one way, and there's the goal that's pulling you another way, and it makes it really difficult. And then this is where a lot of people just succumb, because it's so exhausting. So can you relate to this, like where you have goals but you feel that it's impossible to achieve those goals? So type in the chat box and let me know what your experience has been in terms of goals, because I know some of you said that it's hard to start. Some of you said it's hard to finish. Why is that the case? So David is saying too many ideas. So not choosing any of those ideas, David? What direction is correct? So Jackie's saying feeling overwhelmed. And what's causing you to feel overwhelmed, Jackie? Mike is saying what David said. Yeah, which direction is correct? Sylvia is saying, like you said, distractions. So there are many distractions. Anthony is saying not fully committing to a task. So why are you not fully committing, Anthony? What is causing you to not fully commit? Gideon is saying turning off emails, text, social media, so can focus on work. So that, that's that environment change, certainly, Gideon. So that's good. If that's an environment that's, causing you to be distracted from whatever goal you have, certainly adjusting that environment. So Anthony is saying that he has to multitask. So your focus is not on one thing, so it's hard to commit. I'm also interested in David's comment, which direction is correct. So how do you decide what direction is correct? If you don't know what direction to go in, what do you do? How do you decide? They were saying follow your intuition. Anthony saying ask for help. Florence is saying communicate with leader. So I'm guessing this is asking for help as well. I used this example in a webinar I was doing today, and some of you were actually on this webinar. And I said, imagine I go to a restaurant, right? Imagine I go to a restaurant, I'm hungry, and I'm sitting there and I'm flipping through the menu, and the menu is, maybe 20 pages, whatever, of all of these items that they have on a menu. And I can't decide which one to choose, but I'm hungry. What do? Do I just sit there and not decide? Or do I just pick something? What would you do? So Jackie's saying, I want to focus on one thing and follow through and not waste time or something that will not bring fruition. But Jackie, also not choosing is wasting time, right? If I'm sitting there just staring at the menu and not choosing, I am wasting time. So Amanda's saying you have to begin somewhere and adjust where you go. Absolutely, Amanda. Edwin is saying this is a new environment. Learn as you go. Go leads to stop. Sylvia saying decide based on priorities. Jackie saying absolutely. Right, so you know yourself best, and even for like if I'm at a restaurant and I can even ask the waiter or waitress some questions and say, you know, here's my preference, which one of these dishes would you recommend, and you would still choose. But if you're sitting there and you're not choosing is also a choice, right? Not making a decision is also a decision. And if you're just sitting there afraid to make the wrong choice and not choosing, recognizing that you're just stalling, right? And just making a choice. Because it's causing you to also feel unproductive, to not decide. So David is saying, what if you're the leader? So what do you do if you're the leader, David? So how does that make it different if you're the leader? Yeah, so you can, you know, like if I'm looking at the menu, perhaps I'll pick the chicken dish and I'll try the chicken dish, and if I don't like the chicken dish, at least I tried it, and then I can actually decide, well, this works really well, I enjoy the chicken, I'm gonna continue having this. Or the chicken doesn't work well, then maybe I'll switch to the fish if the fish, you know, fish works well. So it's not making yourself wrong for, you know, it's the point here is not to get it perfect. The point here is not to, because you can't know what you don't know, right? And if you've never done this thing before, it's impossible to know. So you're saying, I have to wait until I know for sure that this is the right choice. But in that space of waiting to know for sure, you're just, you know, delaying, and you're just procrastinating and not really getting anything done. Edwin, absolutely, leaders are human beings. We're not, you know, like expected to be perfect. In fact, you know, as a leader, basically what you're doing is removing the impediments for other people to do their job. You know, you think of, I just had this example of the garden, like, right, when the flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment. Basically, you can think of the leader as the gardener who is there to ensure that those plants get the proper nutrients, they get the proper sunlight, they get the proper water, and you're also removing the weeds that would prevent them from growing. So that's the you know, the function of a leader. It's not to be the expert on everything, but it's to make sure that the people who are doing the work, they're thriving, and to create the conditions to make it easy for them to thrive. Which also means that you have to decide and you have to make decisions. So I hope you can see that. I hope you can see that, David. Right. So basically, to know that when you're you know, when you're pushing and forcing and all of that to make things happen, it's probably because your environment is not set up for you to win. And this is why a lot of people give up in terms of their goals. You know, for a lot of people, like New Year's resolutions, by the end of January, it's like, you know, they've forgotten about them, or, you know, they start off very strong, but then it's very hard to continue. And a big part of this is because the environment is not has not been set up to allow them to thrive. So what do you do instead, right? When this happens, it's, you know, it's Darwin that has this survival of the fittest theory, in terms of how we adapt to our environment. The people who can adapt best to their environment are the people who are going to survive. It's the same, right? So what we want to focus on here is conscious evolution, because we adapt to our environment in order to survive. And conscious evolution basically means intentionally creating your environment that supports who you want to be and supports your goals, right? It means really taking a stand for your goals and taking a stand for yourself. And if you're saying that my goal is to, to land a certain job by the end of this year. So what is the environment that's going to allow me to do that, right? And making sure that you are creating those conditions. Otherwise, again, it's going to be pushing and using willpower. And what's going to happen is that if your environment is not supportive of this, you're going to succumb to your environment. The environment is going to win, right? So this is what it means to really intentionally create your environment, because what you want to do is to ensure that the environment is conducive to you thriving. Imagine the goals you're planting, those are the seeds. And for those seeds to come to fruition, they have to really have the proper conditions. Any questions, any comments? Let me take a sip of water. Okay. So setting up your environment to feel productive. Given the goal you have, or given a goal that you have, what are the conditions which need to be present for it to be realized? So given a goal that you have, what conditions need to be present for that goal to be realized? So type in the chat box. And so Florence is saying quiet. So quiet in terms of the space that you're in, Florence. So given the goal that you have, what are the conditions which need to be present for it to be realized? David saying creativity, thinking outside of the box. So creativity, innovation. So again, if you're planting a seed and you don't know what these conditions are, it's going to be hard for that seed to flourish, right? Because you're not going to know where to put it in terms of sunlight. You're not going to know how much water to give it, all of that. So Florence is saying a place which eliminates distractions. I move away from TV room. Yeah. Janelle is saying people with similar mindset. Excellent, Janelle. Gideon is saying time frame. So what is the time frame, Gideon? And what are the weeds that you need to address that will keep your goal from becoming a reality? Jackie's saying focus on a comfortable space and guidance. The weeds are feeling disconnected and having a community, so not having that supportive community, making sure that you have that supportive community. Noise, Mike is saying noise, white noise, YouTube loud, music, fans, buzzing unless on calls. So you like music, I'm guessing, Mike. I'm guessing music will help you, or music is a weed. David is saying negativity, certainly, right? So, if you're surrounded by people who may not necessarily support your goals, certainly that's a weed, right? So are there any realizations that you're having from typing this and from realizing this, like why it's difficult for you perhaps to achieve some of the goals that you have? So Edwin is saying conflicting information from superiors. So what is in your control, Edwin, in terms of addressing that environmental challenge? Mike is saying wife working at home. Yeah, certainly. We're having a lot of those challenges, Mike. Yeah, in terms of other people being in our surrounding these days. Edwin is saying trying to delay decision until clarity. Yeah, so Edwin, one of the weeds is just like waiting and waiting and waiting and sitting in this waiting mode. And I talk a lot about being in survival mode. And survival is when we go to those fight, flight, freeze responses. And freeze is basically, we're just waiting. We're just waiting to see, to have this magical moment when everything becomes clear because we're not trusting ourselves to choose, right? It's like, again, staring at the menu, and you're not going to know if it's good or bad unless you actually taste it, but staring at the menu until you feel that you have this perfect clarity, and it won't work. So Edwin is saying no good deed goes unpunished. Yeah, so you're seeing now all of these conditions that need to be there in order for you to feel that you can thrive. Gideon is saying he needs a clean desk in order to really feel that he's moving forward with his goals. So yeah, I mean, it's a very personal. It depends on your goals. It depends on on your own needs. So you're seeing how important environment is. So we're going to focus on 4 environments tonight in terms of how you can make changes. Amanda's saying improving time management, and I did a class on this Sunday night, and I talked about like really time is not something that you can manage. I think just using that term time management, I mean, it kind of throws us off because we don't manage time. Time is time, right? We all have the same 24 hours, but basically is how do we manage ourselves in relation to time to ensure that the things that we are committed to 100%. And when we say yes to something, it means that we're also saying no to other things that are conflicting with that. So 4 environments that we want to focus on. The first is your physical environment, right? So some of you already started talking about this in terms of the space that you're operating in right now, and it may, whether it's a TV room and there are those distractions. So is your space conducive to achieving your goals? Is your physical space conducive to achieving your goals? So this is if, again, one of my goals is to be healthy, but what I have in the fridge is pizza, and I have Oreos lying around the living room, and there's Coke on my counter. Obviously it's not an environment. Edwin is saying that sounds great. That's not an environment conducive to that goal, right, of being healthy. So is your space conducive to achieving your goals, or the goal that we started exploring? How is your environment? So how is your physical environment? Are there distractions that take you out of the moment and pull your attention away? Is your physical environment set up for you to win? What changes would you have to make? So Edwin is saying just a cold space in the basement. Amanda was saying my space wasn't ready for working from home, but now I've made changes to adjust my needs. Yeah, so certainly you can make those changes, Amanda. So Edwin, what changes can you make to make that a better space? David saying a more comfortable work chair, matching my office chair. Yeah, I mean, that's great to know. Like for me last year, something I discovered when I was working in the office, I realized in the summer, I would always have this urge to get up from my desk and wander, and I would want to go outside, or I would want to go to the kitchen. And what I realized was that the AC was like really, really high in my office, and that it was making me so uncomfortable, and I didn't actually make the connection until one day the AC just shut off in the middle of the day, and suddenly I found myself like just feeling really good. And what I did is I just put a space heater in my office, and after that it was just like I didn't have that urge to keep moving and to keep wandering, because it was becoming like really distracting to do that. So that was something that for me is like I cannot work in an environment that's cold. So Florence is saying I had to move to a space with a window to see outside. Yeah, so really you need to know yourself and know what's important. Like for me, having bright space is like, it's really important in terms of working. I can't work in a room that's that's dark or where the lights are not good. So it's really, again, understanding yourself, understanding the conditions under which you work best, and, you know, creating that condition, because it's going to be critical in terms of you really moving on those goals. Yeah, so David is saying good lighting to help with eyes and the computer. And those are changes that you can make, right, in terms of ensuring that those things are possible. So those things, you know, like making sure that that you're adjusting your physical environment so that it's allowing you to thrive. So people, so some of you talked about this before, you know, in terms of your support system. Do the people around you support you? Do the people around you support your goals? This is going to be really critical, right? So how can you make your support system stronger? This doesn't mean if the people around you are not really supportive of your goals or really are not aligned with your goals that you drop everyone in your life, right? It just means that perhaps you need to add other people to your life who are more aligned with those goals, who you can actually, you know, share with, who you can actually turn to for support. And perhaps even also spending less time. We talked, you know, someone, it might have been David, who talked about negativity and how to like eliminating that as one of the weeds. And who are the people you need to spend less time with? And where do you need to set boundaries, right? Because boundaries are so important in terms of ensuring that when you say yes, you know, when you say yes to your goals, that it might require also saying no to certain people and certain things, right? And if those things are not a match. So these are things that you have to ensure that you're also looking at. So do you have a strong support system, or is this something that you need to change as well? You know, do you need to have a mentor? Do you need to have a coach? Do you need to get, you know, support from maybe a group of peers, or, you know, like those things? Florence is saying, I had to find ways to use up unspent energy by joining morning and afternoon workouts through New York City work well. Yeah, so that's really important as well. And even that, if it's putting you in, you know, putting you in connection with people who really are like-minded and who support you, it's going to really help you. Yeah, so Jackie's saying mentor, coach, peers. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, so David, it helps to have someone to bounce ideas off of and explore them. And do you have that, David, or is that something that you're exploring? So David has that, so good. So there's this quote by this guy, his name is Jim Rohn, and Jim Rohn says, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So you want to start thinking, who are those 5 people that you spend the most time with? And what are they like? What are their values, right? And think of how much they're influencing you. So basically that those people that you're spending so much time with, whether at work, whether in your social life, you know, whatever it is, they are influencing you. And again, environment, right? Where we adapt to our environment. And how do you consciously start to make changes so that the people that you're spending more time with are more aligned with your values, your vision, your goals. So David is saying not at work. Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily have to be at work, David, but I think having that person in your life is great. Edwin is saying, I miss my colleagues' input. Yeah, and Edwin, even if you're working from home, you can still get that, right? For me, I still have coffee breaks with my colleagues and, you know, schedule that in. So that's something that you can certainly do, like, you know, having those phone chats, or saying, you know, 3 o'clock, let's meet on Zoom for coffee. Yeah, so Gideon, I mean, what if some of those people are your kids? Yeah, I get it. You know, there are constraints in life in general, and it also means that, you know, you can actually also include other people who are outside of that circle, and spend time with them as well. So Mike is saying, went from Times Square to Georgia, not the same. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so even Mike even in Georgia, you know, and maybe even virtually, you can start to create like this environment. Like, who can you connect with? You know, I mean, we're seeing now, like, virtually, everyone's getting closer, right? People are making a greater effort to connect. So it doesn't really have to be necessarily in the place where you are physically. So this is also very important, right? In terms of, so the first one we talked about was your physical environment, the environment in which you're operating physically. You know, does it really support you in terms of where you want to go and the vision you have? The second thing we talked about here is the people aspect of it. You know, are you surrounding yourself with people who are really a good match for your goals and your vision and who you want to be? And are you ensuring that you're setting boundaries, removing those weeds, you know, that may be a negative influence in terms of the goals that you have? And then now we talk about mind and body, right? So I think it was Florence or someone else who talked about, you know, the exercising and all of that. So this means that you have to take care of yourself, right? So if you're, it's like if you're driving a car and, you know, you're just driving this car and driving this car and driving this car, and you're not stopping for fuel, obviously the car is, you know, you're going to run out of gas and the car is not going to be functional anymore. It's the same with our bodies, right? Our bodies, it's our tool. It's what we're using in order to get things done. And we want to take care of that tool. We want to make sure that the tool is sharp, right? And this means that you're, again, making those conscious, intentional decisions to take care of yourself and to eat healthy, right? To have movement and exercise, you know, in your life. Even at a time like this, you know, I see people using Zoom to exercise, or you can go outside for a walk. Even if you can't go to the gym, you can still do a lot of things in terms of taking care of yourself, you know, getting the necessary rest. And I can't tell you how many people I talk to where they're not sleeping enough and they feel tired during the day. And when they're tired during the day, it's hard for them to focus and it's hard for them to make good decisions for themselves. So you know yourself best. You know how many hours of sleep you need a night, right? Of course, I know that there are constraints when you have kids and when you have, you know, especially if you have a baby and all of that, in terms of making this happen. But given those constraints as well, how can you take care of yourself best? And ensuring that you have recreational activities, you know, plan time for laziness, plan time to, you know, sit back and watch a movie, plan time to, you know, to take breaks. Because it's not, you know, people talk a lot about distractions, like they talk about Netflix and they talk about, you know, their phones and all of these. These things can either be used in a constructive way or they can be used in a destructive way. So if you're using it as a way to escape, like, I don't want to deal with something, or my feelings are, I'm feeling anxious right now and I don't want to deal with it, so I'm just going to go scroll through Facebook, or I'm going to binge watch on Netflix, that's not a healthy way to use it. But if you're using it in a way that really re-energizes you, if you're saying, I'm going to go on Facebook because I want to connect with my friend from California, and you're using it in a very intentional way, there's nothing wrong with it. So there's nothing wrong with any of those things, but it's, why are you using it, right? Are you using it from that very intentional, conscious place, or are you using it from a place of, I just want to escape, right? And I just want to avoid, you know, avoid dealing with the overwhelming feelings I'm feeling, or whatever it is. So recognize when you're doing those things that you may feel are distractions, like, what is the reason behind it? And that's going to be really important. So recreational activities are also important. And, you know, perhaps even some mindfulness practice to stay centered, like, you know, meditation or, you know, visualization or whatever it is. How do you ensure that you're taking care of your mind? How do you ensure that you are staying centered. One of you said before that when you achieve your goals, you feel calm. How do you come from that place of calmness? How do you come from that place of center? And this means that you have to intentionally create practices where you're taking care of your mind and your body so that you're showing up alert and you're making decisions. Yeah, Anthony, I fully agree with you. I haven't watched the news in weeks because I mean, if you actually realize it, the news is not there to inform you. The news is there to actually sell you on, advertisements. That's the reason they were created. And even before all of this was happening, is like if you go on to CNN or Fox or any of these other channels, it's all you're seeing all day is breaking news. It's breaking news. It's breaking news, and it's meant to pull you in, right? And basically, if you're getting caught up in that, it's easy to really go into that spiral where it can feel very depressing and it can feel like, a lot of anxiety, and just keeps feeding that. So it's very important to also recognize that. And basically, so Mike is saying I sell ads, daughter at CNN. You're dead on. Okay, Mike. Yes, right. That's the whole point of this, of having these news channels. So it's also important for you to find good sources. Maybe it's the CDC website or whatever it is to get your news, and doing it once a day or whatever time works for you. And then, so Mike is very interesting. Mike lives a mile away from the CDC animal farm, so he can go directly there and get his news. He doesn't need to go to the website. Yeah. That's so interesting, Mike. I like Mike is providing comedy relief. So this webinar itself is meant to create an environment for you to thrive in. Thank you, Mike. So the other environment I want to talk about is the emotional environment, right? Are you processing your emotions? Are you dealing with the anxiety? Are you dealing with the fears? Or are you like just operating from this place of resistance, right? Are you operating from fear, the fear of failure, the fear of what if I choose the wrong thing, the fear of rejection, the fear of uncertainty? Or are you moving, using a vision, a strong plan that you have? This is going to be really important. And this is about taking care of your emotional environment. And taking care of your emotional environment means that you're paying attention. Edwin is saying trying to ignore most things. Yeah. And how does that affect you, Edwin, right? If you're not facing those emotions, if you're not dealing with the anxiety, if you're not dealing with whatever emotions are coming up, they're getting repressed. And what you're doing is that, yes, it definitely adds up, Edwin, and you're going to be making decisions to avoid feeling emotions, right? You're going to be making decisions from that place of fear, from that place of anxiety. And those emotions, those decisions are probably not going to be supporting you in terms of where you want to go. And you also, are you focusing on things that are in your control, or are you focusing on things that are outside of your control, right? Are you looking at the things that you can do, or are you just waiting for things to change, on the outside? Or are you waiting for a boss to, to make a decision while you are just, just letting the time move? So this is going to be very important in terms of really dealing with those emotions, in terms of really, and this is where mindfulness practice can also be very important, to make sure you're moving through this as opposed to operating from resistance. So how many of you, in terms of the emotions, like right now, you feel that, there are a lot of emotions that are coming up, because certainly a time like this brings up a lot of emotions. Thank you so much, Mike. Enjoy your other webinar. So how many of for how many of you is are the emotions feeling overwhelming right now? Yeah, so Florence, definitely a lot of people are having the fear about their job, and especially when we've been told that our jobs are not essential, right? And especially with the economy being what it is, and there are talks of entering into a deep recession. Certainly that brings up a lot of fears. And what is it that you have control over right now? And Edwin is also agreeing and focusing on, so being present, right? Being present. Fear also if you want to change careers, David is saying, yeah. And Florence, what do you mean by team communication? So what's happening right now, it's because of all the uncertainty, right? And because all the things that the routines that we had, and the office settings that we had, and all of these things that are taken away, it can cause us to feel like that things are unstable. And of course there's like tremendous loss in that. Like even a student said to me the other day that the thing that they miss most is having the library to go study, and recognizing that that's also a loss, and you need to grieve those losses, right? As opposed to just dismissing it, because if you're just dismissing it, you're carrying it around, and it's there, and it's percolating, but it's not really going anywhere. So Florence is saying calling in to discuss issues. Yeah, so making sure that you're letting you're actually paying attention to the emotions as well, and dealing with them is going to be really really important. And this is also something that's in your control that you can do, as opposed to just pushing them away and not wanting to feel them. So as we're wrapping up, I just want to to see, based on this presentation that I've done tonight, and based on your input and what's coming up for you, what changes do you need to make in terms of your environment to be more productive? What is it that you need to change to feel more productive based on the goals you have? Edwin is saying breathe. Yeah, so important, Edwin. We tend to forget, right? And breathing is just like acknowledging. It's like this moment right here. Let me just acknowledge that I'm going to be present. Anthony saying take things lighter. So how are you going to do that, Anthony? I would love to hear how you're going to be taking things lighter. What are you going to be doing? David is saying grounding. So how are you going to ground yourself, David? Anthony saying just mental attitude. So Anthony, I think a great practice here is also appreciation, right? All the things that we can appreciate about, even in a time like this. Today I went to the grocery store, and there was food, right? And there's still so much that we have to be grateful for. Even the fact that I can use technology in this way to reach alums, to reach students, to do webinars like this. It's something to be grateful for. So certainly that is one way, as opposed to looking at what we've lost, and what how we may not have the things that we normally have, but how many things that are available to us right now as well. So David is saying, believe in my talents and knowledge. Yes, certainly. And that's the trust that you put in yourself, David. And that's basically what confidence is, really valuing yourself and knowing that you're valuable, that you're bringing that value to others, and that you can, because you actually see that value, that you can give it to others, and you can share that. Florence is saying, and focus thinking, subtract some distractions. Yeah. So making a list of those distractions, Florence. So Rachel is saying, actually start my plan, my tasks. Yeah, so making a list of that, Rachel, and start, right? Rather than just staring at the menu and not choosing, just take one step forward. And from that step forward, it will inform other choices. Janelle is saying meditating, exercising, and reflecting on items covered here. And you're going to get a recording of this as well. And you can go back and listen so taking care of your body, taking care of your mind, it's going to be super important, especially during a time like this, to make sure you're getting the movement in. What else? What other changes do you need to make in terms of your environment to be more productive in those 4 aspects of your environment, in terms of the physical environment, in terms of the people? Are there people that you need to reach out to, connect with, via FaceTime or Facebook or Zoom or WhatsApp or whatever? Also the mind body, and then the emotional environment. It could also be more learning and, attending webinars like this. So many different things that that can be done even during a period like this. So Anthony's saying having a regular schedule. Yeah, and even, like having that routine, like if you're working, perhaps, getting up, taking a shower, having your breakfast, and then, perhaps having a space where you feel that you can be in work mode. Very important, having going to bed at whatever time that's right for you, as opposed to staying up later, can be very important, Anthony, in terms of ensuring that you're moving forward. They were saying networking, search associations or groups. Yeah, very, very important. Networking is something that you can do right now, especially in terms of reaching out to people to just see how they're doing, and just getting back in touch with people that perhaps you've lost contact with could be something that's very important. Gideon is saying blocking out specific hours in a day to focus and advance your goal. Yeah, so having those times that you're setting aside to get things done. Like for me, I do have time that I block off just for thinking, and to be creative. So you guys have a lot of ideas. This is really great, and I feel that you've also got some awareness in terms of where you can make changes to, again, consciously create the environment that's going to allow your goal, that the seed that you're planting, to really bear fruits, to come to actually achieve those goals. And this is 100% in your control. And that's the thing that I want you to start focusing on. What are the things that you can do? What are the things that you can influence? What are the things that you can change so that you're making it easy for yourself to win, right? And it's a lot that we've covered tonight. So if you need to go back, the recording is going to be sent to you. Go back and watch it, and you can make notes as well. And certainly, I hope I get to see you on other webinars that we'll be doing going forward. So any questions? I'm going to be here. I'm going to stick around for a while. You can certainly type them in the chat box. Any comments that you have, certainly type them in the chat box as well. And I just want to say thank you as well to Greg for organizing this. It was fun as usual.
Thank you very much, Tanuja. Thank you to everybody who participated today. This was great. Speaking to the point someone made about having a routine, there was an article just today in the New York Times that was talking about how electricity use in New York City indicates that people have totally erratic hours now. People wake up later, they go to sleep later. So, there's something to having sort of a consistent schedule. So I know a lot of people are tempted to just, sleep in or go to bed really late, but there is some value in having a bit of a schedule that you can develop.
Certainly.
Thank you, everybody. We are going to send out a recording of this. I'd also like to let everyone know that we are going to be having another webinar with Tanuja in May, May 14th, I believe. It's going to be Career Freedom and Fulfillment, which was actually going to be an in-person event, which we have reshifted to now being online. So we can send out information about that as well when we follow up. And just thank you so much for being here, everyone. Hope you guys are all managing well and that this was helpful for you. And if you have any more questions, Tanuja and I will stay on the line for a while, so feel free to put them into the chat bar.
Yeah, and I have some other webinars that I'm leading as well, with students specifically, and I'll send those to you, Greg. You can send it out when you send the recording.
Sounds good. Yeah, excellent.
Thank you all. I think it's been a great group, and your participation also is what makes these webinars useful. And you showing up here and being open, and I really appreciate that, because it does take courage to to share. Yeah.
I think you also learn that a lot of us are facing the same type of
Same
issues,
thing, yeah.
Yeah. So one person says it and it resonates with everyone.
Yeah, I was saying that in my webinar earlier today, that we tend to think that we're isolated in our problems. And then when we get on a call like this and we recognize that, the thing that we have in common is that we feel isolated.
Yeah.
And yeah. You're welcome, Rachel. Welcome, Florence. Ismania, welcome. Welcome, Olivia. Welcome, Sylvia. You're welcome, Anthony. You're welcome, Shauna, Stephen. Yeah, Anthony, definitely you need a reminder, and I think this is a great environment, and I'm very grateful for Alumni Relations for putting together these webinars as well, for our alums.
Yeah, silver lining in everything. We've been able to do a lot more of these types of events for our alumni, and we've been able to collaborate with great people like Tanuja a lot more than even usual. So it's been a silver lining in all this. We've gotten a lot more digital events and really useful and practical content for alumni.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I was saying that today as well in my webinars. Like, I've been thinking of doing webinars for a long time, but the need was not really there, because I was in the office and there was, all these rooms available for us to do workshops.
Right.
So I was doing all the workshops, and now realizing that, how far we can reach alums, like, in Atlanta. And we've had, like, even last week I did one with admissions office, and there were people from Israel and people from, India connecting, and it was really great to be able to have that. So certainly, something good that has come out of this for us. And I know when we go back, this is something that we're going to keep doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we've all wanted to do more online components to what we do. So now it's sort of threw us into the deep end, and we'll be able to take this with us when we go back to relative normalcy, whenever that might be.
Yes, yes. And in the meantime, we're creating a new normal here with, with all of you.
And I like the commentary about cable news as well. The breaking news has almost lost all meaning at this point.
Exactly, it's always breaking news.
Everything is breaking news, yes. So it's just constantly flashing on the screen, so yeah.
Yeah, there's a great article I read as well, and then talks about, like, going back to the normal, and how it was like the advertising industry is going to come right back at us and tell us when we drink the Coke, we'll feel better, and when we, like, all of this stuff. And to say that, it's always telling us, like, there's always something missing. There's, there's something more we need in order to feel that sense of that we're good enough, and we're, life is meaningful.
Right.
So something that you need to also be aware of. Yeah. All right.
Very good. Thank you guys, everybody, for being here. And we look forward to seeing you at some more virtual events in the near future. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome, Monica. Good to see you here. I've seen a lot of these people twice today, so that's good.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, you're developing a fan club, Tanuja. We can create a Facebook group for that.
We will. Yes, we will. All right, guys. Olivia, take care.
All right, guys. Thank you. All right. Well, I guess we will end the meeting now. Really appreciate everyone taking the time to be here. Thank you, Tanuja, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Take care.
Take care, everybody.